Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep into learning, how we learn best and why that old one-size-fits-all just doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
Like trying to buy shoes if there was only one size for everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're diving into UDL, Universal Design for Learning and
It's a
Blended Learning, and we've got some amazing resources to dig into today. Practical examples and even some lesson plans so we can see how it all works, in the real world.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating how much we've learned about the brain in recent years and how different our learning styles can be.
Right.
Cognitive neuroscience is really showing us that we're wired uniquely,
Mm.
and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Trying to force everyone into the same mold,
Right.
it just doesn't work.
Exactly. It's like trying to fit that square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating and pointless.
Absolutely.
And I really like how UDL recognizes that individual variability, and that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, it's not about, labeling people as this or that type of learner,
Right.
ADHD or learning disabled, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's really about understanding that everyone has a unique learning profile and then building on their strengths
Right.
and addressing their challenges.
Okay, so let's break down those three main principles of UDL.
Okay.
The first one is multiple means of engagement, and I think this is where it really gets interesting for you as the learner.
Yeah.
We've all had those moments where something just clicks
Uh-huh.
and we're completely absorbed in learning something new.
Right.
UDL recognizes that we need different ways to spark that initial interest
Yeah,
and to keep that learning momentum going.
absolutely. I think, some people love to just dive into a textbook and just soak up all that information.
Yeah.
Other people learn best by, building something.
Right.
Getting their hands dirty with a project,
Uh-huh.
or maybe they're visual learners and they need to see a concept illustrated to really grasp it.
Right. And it's not just about that initial spark of interest. It's
Yeah.
about staying motivated and engaged throughout the whole learning process.
Yes.
I remember struggling in science class because it was all about memorizing facts and formulas.
I can relate to that.
And it wasn't until I started doing hands-on experiments that things started to click for me.
Right.
Suddenly science became alive.
Yeah.
And I was eager to learn more.
That's a great example of how UDL can transform learning, from a chore into a truly enjoyable experience.
Right.
It's about, tapping into what makes you tick as a learner
Uh-huh.
and finding those pathways that lead to those aha moments.
Now, the second UDL principle is multiple means of representation.
Okay.
Imagine a learning buffet
Okay.
where information is presented in all sorts of ways, text, videos, even hands-on activities.
So we're moving beyond that traditional textbook and lecture format.
Right.
We're starting to recognize that your brain might prefer certain flavors of information.
Yeah.
Some people might devour pages of text, while others might need visuals or audio to really grasp a concept.
That reminds me of how I learn languages.
Okay.
I can stare at a vocabulary list for hours
Right.
and barely remember a word.
Uh-huh.
But if I hear those words spoken in a conversation
Yeah.
or see them used in real-world contexts,
Yeah.
then they stick with me.
Right. It's about finding the representation that resonates with your brain.
Exactly.
And blended learning comes into play here because it offers so much variety.
Right.
You can watch videos, listen to podcasts, participate in online simulations. The options are almost endless these days.
This is where learning starts to feel personalized
Yeah.
and less like a one-size-fits-all factory model.
Right.
It's exciting to think about how technology can create these customized learning journeys for everyone.
We're moving away from that idea that, everyone should learn at the same pace and in the same way.
Right.
With blended learning, you might spend extra time on a concept that's challenging for you or breeze through something you already understand.
Okay, so the third UDL principle is multiple means of action and expression.
Okay.
So we've talked about engaging your interest
Yeah.
and presenting information in different ways.
Right.
Now it's about showing what you know.
Yeah.
Going beyond the traditional test format.
We're moving beyond, pen and paper tests,
Yeah.
fill in the blank, multiple choice.
Right.
We're starting to recognize that, you have a unique way of expressing your knowledge and understanding.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you excel at giving presentations.
Right.
Or maybe you could create an awesome podcast
Yeah.
to show your understanding of a topic.
It's about finding that format that allows you to shine
Absolutely.
and demonstrate your mastery in a way that feels authentic to you.
Exactly.
I remember a history project where we were given the choice of writing a traditional essay, creating a video documentary, or even writing and performing a historical play.
Wow,
I chose the play, and I had a blast researching, writing, and directing it.
that's great.
I learned so much more through that project than I ever would have from a traditional essay.
That's a fantastic example of how providing options for action and expression
Right.
can really unlock creativity and deeper learning.
Mm-hmm.
And it connects back to that idea of, learner agency and empowerment.
Right.
You're not just passively absorbing information,
Right.
you're actively shaping your own learning journey.
And that's a great segue to our next topic, the importance of equity in education
Yeah.
and how UDL can level the playing field.
Yeah.
Our sources highlighted a troubling reality. Students from disadvantaged backgrounds often miss out on crucial resources and opportunities.
That's right. And UDL can be a powerful tool for bridging that gap.
Okay.
By focusing on individual needs
Uh-huh.
and providing multiple pathways to learning, we can create a more just and equitable education system where everyone has the chance to thrive.
So it's about making sure everyone has access to high-quality learning experiences
Yeah.
regardless of their background,
Well,
their learning style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or their individual challenges.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everyone deserves the opportunity to reach their full potential.
Absolutely. So we've talked about these big ideas behind UDL making learning engaging, presenting information in, all these different ways, and allowing for different ways to show what you've learned.
Right.
But how does this actually play out in the classroom?
Yeah.
What does UDL look like in action?
That's where things get really exciting. We're moving away from that traditional model where the teacher is at the front of the classroom just delivering information in a one-size-fits-all manner.
Right.
UDL is all about creating dynamic learning environments
Right.
where every student can thrive.
Our sources talked about UDL lesson planning and how it starts with you, the learner, and your goals.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what you're trying to achieve, your strengths, your challenges.
There's this great analogy in one of the articles that compares UDL lesson planning to a detective's work.
Oh, interesting.
Teachers become like investigators, you know.
Trying to anticipate potential roadblocks and barriers that might get in the way of your learning.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like they're looking ahead, trying to spot those potholes in the road before you trip over them.
Exactly.
I like that.
And they embrace the idea that learning isn't always, this neat and tidy linear process.
Right.
It can be messy.
Yeah.
It can be unpredictable
Uh-huh.
with twists and turns along the way.
Yeah.
It's like building a house, Sometimes you have to make a mess
Right.
to figure out how all the pieces fit together.
I love that. Learning is a process of discovery and exploration.
Exactly.
And sometimes you need to experiment
Right.
and even make a few mistakes along the way. It's all part of the journey.
Absolutely. And that's where those specific UDL strategies come in.
Okay.
Think about, flexible groupings.
Okay.
Sometimes you might thrive in a whole class setting, bouncing ideas off your classmates.
Uh-huh.
Other times you might need to work in a smaller group where you can really, dive deeper into a concept with a few peers.
Right.
And sometimes you might need to just fly solo and work independently.
It's about having options and finding the learning environment that works best for you at any given moment.
Right. The sources also talk about the importance of concise presentation,
Okay.
followed by discussion.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, getting that core idea across quickly and clearly,
Right.
and then opening up the floor for discussion
Mm-hmm.
where you can dig deeper with your classmates and the teacher.
I think that's so important. I remember those classes where the teacher would drone on for an hour,
Oh, yeah.
and by the end, my brain was fried and I couldn't remember anything.
You're just overwhelmed.
But when a teacher presents information in a concise and engaging way, it leaves space for those aha moments and those deeper conversations that really solidify learning.
And observant teachers play a crucial role in a UDL setting.
Right.
They're constantly watching and listening,
Uh-huh.
trying to spot those moments when you might need extra support or when you're ready for a challenge. They're like coaches,
Mhm.
cheering you on and pushing you to be your best.
It's all about creating that supportive and trusting environment where you feel comfortable taking risks and asking questions.
Absolutely. The sources mention learning stations,
Okay.
which are a great way to cater to different learning styles.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a classroom with different stations set up,
Okay.
each focusing on a different aspect of the topic.
Yeah.
You might have a reading station, a video station, a hands-on activity station, even a podcast creation station.
It's like a learning buffet where you can choose the dishes that appeal to you
They
and that
seem so-
align with your learning preferences.
And let's talk about the importance of trust between teachers and students.
Okay.
I think back to my own school days,
Mm-hmm.
and the teachers who made a real difference in my life were the ones who I felt a genuine connection with the ones I trusted.
I agree. When you trust your teacher, you feel safe to ask questions, take risks, and really push yourself. They're there to support you and guide you through the challenges. It can make all the difference in the world.
The sources mentioned the traditional initiate, respond, evaluate approach,
Right.
where the teacher asks a question, the student answers, and the teacher evaluates the response.
Mm.
And they point out that this can sometimes feel limiting.
Right.
Like, only one person gets to shine at a time.
I can see that. It can feel like you're constantly being tested and judged, which can stifle creativity and the joy of learning.
Right. UDL aims to create a more dynamic and inclusive learning environment
Right.
where everyone feels heard and valued.
Uh,
It's about moving beyond that traditional call and response format
right.
and creating opportunities for genuine dialogue and collaboration.
It's about building a community of learners where everyone feels empowered to contribute and share their unique perspectives. So it sounds like UDL really changes what it means to be a teacher. It's less about being the sage on the stage and more about being a facilitator, like a guide on the side.
Exactly. And that brings us to a really important point, this idea of the learning facilitator.
Okay.
It's not about just standing at the front of the classroom and delivering information.
Right.
It's about guiding, motivating, and believing in each student's potential.
So like that coaching analogy, again, they're not just teaching content. They're really helping you develop as a learner,
Right.
empowering you to take ownership of your education.
They're creating a space where you can explore, experiment, and even stumble a bit, knowing that you have a supportive guide to help you through those challenges.
Yeah.
And feedback is really crucial here.
Speaking of feedback, one of the sources talked about how important it is to get feedback while you're learning,
Yes.
not just at the end with a grade on a test.
So absolutely. It's about providing that feedback in a timely and actionable way so you can make adjustments and course correct along the way.
Right. It's like having a GPS for your learning journey.
Exactly.
And all of this ties back to choice path learning, which we touched on earlier. When you have choices in how you learn, you're more invested and motivated.
It's not just about making learning more fun, although that's definitely a bonus.
Right.
There's actually a cognitive principle behind this called self-determination theory.
Okay.
It suggests that when we have autonomy and control over our learning, we're more likely to feel intrinsically motivated,
That makes sense.
which leads to deeper engagement and better outcomes.
So remember that animal adaptation project you mentioned where you had the freedom to choose how to present your research?
Yeah,
It sounds like that tapped into that self-determination piece,
it absolutely did.
making it more meaningful for you.
And those choices, whether it's picking a project format or deciding how to study for a test, they help you develop these essential skills like self-management planning and decision-making,
Right.
skills that are valuable far beyond the classroom.
It's like you're building this toolkit for lifelong learning, equipping yourself with the skills to tackle any challenge that comes your way.
Precisely. And that's the real power of UDL and blended learning.
Uh-huh.
They empower you to become a lifelong learner, capable of adapting, growing, and thriving in this, ever-changing world.
It's inspiring to think about how these ideas could transform not just traditional classrooms, but all kinds of learning environments.
You're right. Think about workplaces, online learning platforms, even just your own personal learning journey.
Yeah.
These principles can really be applied anywhere you're striving to grow and expand your knowledge and skills.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, it seems like UDL and blended learning really offer a powerful vision for the future of learning. It's about flexibility, personalization, and recognizing that one size does not fit all when it comes to education.
And what's so exciting is that this isn't just some, far-off utopia.
Right.
These principles are being put into practice right now in classrooms and learning environments around the world.
And that leaves us with a thought-provoking question for you, our listeners. How can you incorporate UDL principles into your own learning or work?
Yeah.
How might you advocate for more flexible and personalized approaches in your own sphere of influence?
That's a great question.
The possibilities are truly endless.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you. Keep those brains engaged and never stop exploring new ways to learn and grow.